Okay, tonight is the 24th of August 2011, and this is the fifth night we are speaking on the Sutta Nipata. Tonight we come to chapter 4, Ataka Vaga, the chapter of the eights. There are certain sections from this chapter which are quoted in other Nikayas, like Samyutta Nikaya. So we can say that this is probably one of the oldest suttas. The first sutta is Kama Sutta. If he who desires sensual pleasures is successful, he will certainly be gratified, having obtained what a mortal wishes for. But if those sensual pleasures are denied to the person who desires and wishes for them, he will suffer as one pierced with darts. He who avoids sensual pleasures, as he would avoid crushing the head of a snake with his foot, such a one, being thoughtful, will conquer this desire. He who desires different sense objects, such as estates, gardens, gold, money, horses, servants, relations, passions will overpower him, dangers will crush him, and pain will follow him, as water leaks into a wrecked ship. Therefore, let one always be thoughtful and avoid sensual pleasures. Having abandoned them, let him cross the flood of defilements, and like bailing out a damaged ship, go to the further shore. So here is warning us about sensual pleasures, sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch, and even thoughts. There are certain similes given in the, I think we saw in the Majjhima Nikaya last year. One of them is like if a crow picks up a piece of meat and he flies away hoping to eat that meat, other birds will go after him and peck him and try to snatch the meat from him, and if he does not let go of that meat, he'll be bitten and pecked at by the eagle and other birds. So in the same way, when we enjoy sensual pleasures, there's always the danger. Other people also want to enjoy, so they'll fight with us for it and all this. So it's just like it's always dangerous. Just like you try to crush the head of a snake with your foot, you might get bitten by the snake and die. Now the second sutta, 4.2, Khuddaka Sutta. That man who is greatly attached to the cave of the body and sunk in delusion, such a one is far from detachment. Sensual pleasures are not easy to abandon in the world. Those who are bound to worldly pleasures, conditioned by craving, are difficult to liberate. They cannot be liberated by others. Perceiving their past and future indulgence, they hanker after sensuality. Stop here for a moment. Because of past enjoyment, the memory always comes up, how pleasant it was. So we want to enjoy it, we crave for it. And we have fantasies that in the future, this indulgence it will be even more satisfying. So we hanker after sensuality. Those who are greedy, stingy, engage in and are infatuated by sensual pleasures, who are led to a miserable state, will wail, what will happen to us after death? Therefore, a person should train himself in the immediate present. If he knows that the world is wicked, he should not take the wicked way. Life is short, say the wise. Observe these trembling beings of the world, given to desire for various states of becoming. They are wrecked, who cringe at death, not being free from craving for repeated birth. Look at those who struggle after their petty ambitions, like fish in a stream that is fast drying up. Seeing this, let one fare unselfish in this life, while ceasing to worry about various states of becoming. Overcoming desire alike for sensory enjoyment and their causes, comprehending sense impressions, not hankering after enjoyments, and not doing what is against one's conscience. The wise one does not get attached to what he sees or hears. Having realized the nature of ideas or perceptions, the sage is not attached to worldly objects. Having pulled out the dart of passion and faring heedfully, he does not crave for this world or the next. If we want something, we are always trembling with fear that we might lose it or we might not get it. The next sutta, 4.3, Khuddaka Sutta. Some people speak with malicious intentions and others with the conviction that they are right. But the sage does not enter into any controversy that has arisen. Therefore, the sage is free from all mental obstruction. The person who is led by his impelling desire and continues according to his inclination finds it difficult to give up those views he adheres to. Coming to conclusions of his own, he speaks in accordance with his knowledge. If a person, without being asked, praises his own virtue and practices to others, or talks of himself, the good say he is ignoble. The calm, disciplined one who abstains from praising himself or his virtues, declaring, "So I am," the good call him a noble. In him there is no arrogance concerning the world. He whose views are mentally constructed, causally formed, highly esteemed but not pure, views in which he sees personal advantage, will experience a calm which is unstable. It is hard to go beyond preconceived ideas reached by passing judgment regarding doctrines. Therefore, with regard to these views, he rejects one and grasps another. For the person with spiritual excellence, nowhere in the world does he have any mentally constructed view about various spheres of becoming. As he has eradicated delusion and deceit, in what manner can he be reckoned? He cannot be reckoned in any manner whatsoever. He who is attached enters into debate about doctrines. By what and how can an unattached person be characterized? He has nothing to grasp or reject. He has purified all views here itself. So the person who is liberated is free from views. Views only lead to arguments. 4.4 Khuddaka Sutta. I see what is pure, noble, and healthy. A person's purification emerges from what he has seen. Thus, holding this opinion and having seen this view to be the best, he considers knowledge to lead to purity. If a man's purity comes from what is seen by him, or if by this knowledge he can be freed of sorrow, then something other than the noble path makes the person with grasping a pure one. This view itself reveals the nature of this person. No Brahmana or holy man claims purity from an external source, such as what is seen, heard, or cognized, or from rules or rituals. Unsullied by both merit and demerit, he has discarded the ego. He does not commit here any action productive of free becoming. Results. Those who leave one thing to take up another and follow attachment never relinquish desire. They are like monkeys who let go of one branch to grasp another, only to let it go again. The man who, having undertaken certain holy practices himself, attached to ideas, passes from superior to inferior states. But the wise man, having understood the truth by the supreme means of knowledge, does not pass from superior to inferior states. He who has dissociated himself from whatever is seen, heard, or cognized, how can one have doubts about such an insightful person who conducts himself openly? They do not speculate, they do not esteem any views and say, this is the highest purity. They release the knot of dogmatic clinging and do not long for anything in the world. The Brahmana who has transcended the limits of mundane existence, he has no grasping after his knowing or seeing. He delights neither in passion nor in dispassion. For him there is nothing here to be grasped. Paramattaka Sutta. The person abiding by a certain dogmatic view, considering it is the highest in the world, claims this is the most excellent, and disparages other views different from that as inferior. As a result, he is not free from disputes. When he sees personal advantages from the things that he has seen, heard or cognized, or from rules or rituals, he clings passionately to that alone, and sees everything else as inferior. The experts say that it is a bond to depend on what one associates with, and to see everything else as inferior. Therefore, the disciplined one should not trust in things seen, heard or felt, or in rules and rituals. A disciplined man does not engender dogmatic views because of knowledge or rules and rituals. Therefore, he does not consider himself superior, inferior or equal. The sage has abandoned the notion of self or ego and is free from clinging. He does not depend even on knowledge. He does not take sides in the midst of controversy. He has no dogmatic views. For him there is no desire to strive for this or that, in this world or the next. He has ceased to associate with dogmas, for he no longer requires the solace that dogmas offer. To the sage there is not the slightest prejudiced view with regard to things seen, heard or felt. How can anyone in the world characterize by thought such a pure one who does not dogmatically grasp any views? They neither form any particular dogma nor prefer anything. Dogmatic views are not esteemed by them. The Brahmana is not led by rules and rituals. Thus the steadfast one has gone to the further shore, never more to return. So basically also the same, no views by one who is enlightened. Jara Sutta. Short indeed is this life. 4.6. Short indeed is this life. One dies within 100 years. But if anyone survives longer than that, he surely dies of old age. People grieve for the things they are attached to as mine, but there is no enduring object of grasping. Comprehending this situation, the wise one should lead a homeless life. What one grasps thinking this is mine is left behind by death. Recognizing this fact, let not the wise one who follows the right path turn to acquisitiveness. The awakened one does not see what he has dreamt in sleep. The awakened person does not see what he has dreamt in sleep. Likewise, one does not see the beloved that has passed away and is dead. Seen and heard are those people whose particular names are mentioned, but only the name of a person remains when he has passed away. The selfish, greedy ones do not give up sorrow, lamentation and miserliness. Hence the sages, giving up objects of grasping, wander about. You can say with tranquility. For the disciplined one who leads a contemplative life and cultivates a mind of seclusion, it is to be expected that he will not continue in existence. The sage who is independent in all circumstances does not exhibit like or dislike. Sorrow and avarice do not cling to him as water does not stick to the lotus leaf. As a drop of water does not stick to a lotus leaf, or as a lotus flower is untainted by the water, so the sage does not cling to anything seen, heard or thought. The liberated one does not seek anything that is seen, heard or thought. He does not seek purity through anything else, for he has neither passion nor dispassion. If you want to stop me any time when I'm speaking, you can put up your hand. 4.7 Tissa Metya Sutta. Tissa Metya asks, tell me, gracious sir, the mishaps or harm for him who is given to sexual intercourse. By learning your admonition, we will train ourselves in seclusion, And the Buddha said, both learning and the practice of the teaching are lost to him who is given to sexual intercourse. He employs himself wrongly. This is what is ignoble in him. He who formerly fared alone, but is now given to sexual intercourse, they call that uncontrolled one a low and ordinary being, who is like a lurching chariot. What fame and renown he had before is lost to him. Having seen this, he should train to give up sexual intercourse. He who is overcome by imaginative thoughts broods thereon like a miserable fellow, and having heard the reproach of others, he becomes depressed. Tormented by the words of others, he injures his life by wrongdoing. He becomes attached and plunges into falsehood or lying. First they thought him a wise one when he took up the solitary life, but since he has given himself up to sexual intercourse, they call him a fool. Realizing this danger in the world from beginning to the end, the sage keeps strictly to his solitary life. He does not give himself up to sexual intercourse. Let him train in the solitary life, for that is the noble life. Because of that, he should not think himself the best. He truly is the person who is at the threshold of liberation. The tranquil and solitary sage remains free from sensual desires and has crossed the stream of such tendencies. He is indeed envied by those attached to carnal bonds. If a person has renounced as a monk and he breaks this precept of sexual intercourse, it's very dangerous. It's one of the major, the most heaviest offences among the precepts. Might even go to hell. 4.8 Pasura Sutta. They say that purity is theirs alone. They do not say that there is purity in the teachings of others. Whatever teachings they have devoted themselves to, they claim that as the most excellent, and thus separately hold diverse views. The debaters, having entered into the gathering, start disputes, calling each other fools. Since they are depending on certain teachers, they seek praise, calling themselves the experts. Engaged in disputations in the midst of a gathering, one becomes frustrated in one's quest for praise. In defeat, he becomes downcast, and seeking for flaws in others, becomes enraged by their criticism. When those who have tested his questions say that his talk is faulty, he laments, grieves and wails in his worthless disputes, saying, "They have defeated me." These disputes arise among recluses, and as a result of them, there is elation and depression. Seeing this, avoid disputation. There is no value in it other than the praise won thereby. He who is praised in the midst of a gathering for having successfully defended his view will be thrilled with joy and be much elated in mind for having won his case. Elation itself is the ground of his downfall, for still he talks with pride and arrogance. Seeing this, one should not dispute, for the wise never say that purification is achieved thereby. Like the bold one, nourished by good food, he goes forth roaring, looking for a rival. Wherever there is such a rival, you may go there, but here there is nothing left which could provoke a fight. Those who have embraced a certain theory and argue over it, maintaining that that alone is the truth, you may talk with such people, but here there is no opponent to battle with you. Those who fare on without association, without countering one theory with another, what opponent would you obtain, O bold one, from them? For them there is nothing embraced as the highest. Speculating in your mind on different philosophical views, you have come reflecting on them, but you cannot go along together with the one who is purified. It's the end of the sutta. In India, last time, there were a lot of these ascetics going around debating with each other. And you can see in present-day Buddhism, this is still found in Tibetan Buddhism. I can find Tibetan monks, when they train, they are trained to argue with each other. So we can know in Tibetan Buddhism there is a lot of external sect teachings like mantras, Tantric Buddhism, and all those things. The next sutta is 4.9, Magandhya Sutta. This is a dialogue between Magandhya and the Buddha. It seems Magandhya wanted to offer his daughter to the Buddha. The Buddha said, even seeing Mara's daughters, Tanha, craving, Rati, attachment, and Raga, passion, there was not the least arising of carnal desire in me for intercourse. What is this thing full of urine and excrement? I would not like even to touch it with my foot. Stop here for a moment. Mara's 3 daughters, being from the 6th heaven, were extremely beautiful. They tried to tempt the Buddha, but the Buddha was not moved. Then they changed their form into a few, each one of them, I think 100 beautiful young girls. So 3 of them, 300, something like that. And still the Buddha was not moved. Then they thought maybe he likes older women. Then they started to change their form into older women and all that, and still he was not moved. Finally, they realized they could not move the Buddha's heart. So here the Buddha says, this you want to offer me this daughter? What is this thing full of urine and excrement? I won't even touch it with my foot. So if this girl was around, probably she'll be very offended. Magandhya said, if you do not want such a jewel, a maiden desired by many kings, tell me what is your view, what is your way of life in accordance with virtue and practice, and your future destiny. And the Buddha said, Magandhya, after studying what men hold fast to, I do not say, this I declare. Seeing all these views, but not grasping them, and searching for the truth, I found inward peace. And Magandhya said, noble sage, without grasping those judgments incorporated in the speculative systems, you talk of inward peace. How is it described by the wise? And the Buddha said, I do not say one attains purification by view, tradition, knowledge, virtue, or rituals, nor is it attained without view, tradition, knowledge, virtue, or ritual. It is only taking these factors as the means and not grasping them as ends in themselves that one so attains, and consequently does not crave for re-becoming. And Magandhya said, if you do not say that purification is not attained by view, tradition, knowledge, and rituals, nor by absence of these, it seems to me that your law or knowledge is a nonsense, because some deem purification is from view. The Buddha said, because of your view, you are continually asking these questions. It is because you are obsessed with your preconceived notions that you are holding fast. From this you have not perceived the least sense. That is why you see this as nonsense. He who thinks himself equal, inferior or superior to others, by that very reason enters disputation. But there are not such thoughts equal, inferior or superior to him who is unmoved by these 3 measurements. Why should the Arahant argue with whom he contends, saying this is a truth or that is a lie? If one has no such thoughts, equal or unequal, with whom should he enter into dispute? The sage who has forsaken his home, not entering upon intimate relations in villages, free from lust, without preferences, he does not engage in disputatious talk with people. Now stop here for a moment. This verse, 844, is found in Sangyutta Nikaya 22.3, the 3rd sutta in the Khanda Sangyutta. The sage who has forsaken his home, not entering upon intimate relations in villages, free from lust, without preferences. He does not engage in disputatious talk with people. The noble one who wanders in the world, liberated from views, does not grasp them and enter into arguments. As the lotus rises on its thorny stalk, unsoiled by mud and water, so the sage, speaker of peace and free from desire, is unsoiled by the world and its carnal pleasures. That wise one does not become conceited through views or knowledge, for he is not attached to that sort. He is neither influenced by action nor by learning, being detached in every circumstance. There are no ties for him who is free from ideas. There are no delusions for him who is delivered by wisdom. Those who grasp ideas and views wander about, coming into conflict in the world. The next sutta, number 10, 4.10, Purabheda Sutta. Gautama, sir, a questioner said to the Buddha, I want to ask you about the perfect man. There are those people whom we call men who are calm. Can you tell me how they see things and how they behave? And the Buddha said, a man who is calmed, who has extinguished all his cravings before the time his body disintegrates into nothing, who has no concern with how things began or with how they will end, and no fixation with what happens in between. Such a man has no preferences. He has no anger, no fear, and no pride. Nothing disturbs his composure, and nothing gives him cause for regret. He is the wise man who is restrained in speech. He has no longing for the future and no grief for the past. There are no views or opinions that lead him. He can see detachment from the entangled world of sense impression. He does not conceal anything, and there is nothing he holds on to. Without acquisitions or envy, he remains unobtrusive. He does not disdain or insult anyone. He is not a man who is arrogant or a man who is addicted to pleasure. He is a man who is gentle and alert, with no blind faith. He shows no aversion to anything. He is not a person who is energetic because he wants something. If he gets nothing at all, he remains unperturbed. There is no craving to build up the passion to taste new pleasures. His mindfulness holds him posed in a constant even-mindedness where arrogance is impossible. He makes no comparisons with the world, with the rest of the world, as superior, inferior, or equal. Because he understands the way things are, he is free from dependency, and there is nothing he relies on. For him there is no more craving to exist or not to exist. This is what I call a man who is calm. It is a man who does not seek after pleasure, who has nothing to tie him down, who has gone beyond the pull of attachment. It is a man without sons, a man without wealth, without fields, without cows, a man with nothing in him that he grasps at as his, and nothing in him that he rejects as not his. He is a man who receives false criticisms from other people, from Brahmins and recluses, but who remains undisturbed and unmoved by their words. He is a man without greed and without possessiveness. He is a man who, as a man of wisdom, does not consider himself superior, inferior, or equal. He is a man who does not enter speculation, a man who is free from speculations. He is a man who has nothing in this world that he calls his own, and who does not grieve for not having anything. He is calmed and does not have speculative views. Well, this is quite clear, nothing much to explain. The next sutta, 4.11, Kalaha Vivada Sutta, about the causes of quarrels. Sir, said a questioner, whenever there are arguments and quarrels, there are tears and anguish, arrogance and pride, and grudges and insults to go with them. Can you explain how these things come about? Where do they all come from? And the Buddha said, the tears and anguish that follow arguments and quarrels, the arrogance and pride and the grudges and insults that go with them are all the result of one thing. They come from having preferences, from holding things precious and dear. Insults are born out of arguments, and grudges are inseparable from quarrels. And the man asked, but why, sir, do we have these preferences, these special things? Why do we have so much greed and all the aspirations and achievements that we base our lives on? Where do we get them from? And the Buddha said, the preferences, the precious things, come from the impulse of desire. So too does the greed, and so too do the aspirations and achievements that make up people's lives. Again he asked, from where, sir, comes this impulse of desire? From where do we derive our theories and opinions? And what about all the other things that you, the wanderer, have named, such as anger, dishonesty, and confusion? And the Buddha said, the impulse of desire arises when people think of one thing as pleasant and another as unpleasant. That is the source of desire. It is when people see that material things are subject both to becoming and disintegration that they form their theories about the world. Anger, confusion, and dishonesty arise when things are set in pairs as opposites. The person with perplexity must train himself in the path of knowledge. The recluse has declared the truth after realization. And the man asked again, but why, sir, is it that we find some things pleasant and some unpleasant? What could we do to stop that? And this idea of becoming and disintegration, could you explain where that comes from? And the Buddha said, it's the action of contact, of mental impression that leads to the feelings of pleasant and unpleasant. Without the contact, they would not exist. And as I see it, the idea of becoming and disintegration also comes from this source, from the action of contact. And the man asked again, so what, sir, does this contact come from? And the grasping habit, what's the reason for that? Is there anything that can be done to get rid of possessiveness and anything that could be eliminated so that there would be no more contacts? And the Buddha said, contact exists because the compound of mind and matter exists. The habit of grasping is based on wanting things. If there were no wanting, there would be no possessiveness. Similarly, without the element of form, of matter, there would be no contact. And the man asked again, what pursuit leads a person to get rid of form? And how can suffering and pleasure cease to exist? This is what I want to know about. And the Buddha said, there is a state where form ceases to exist. It is a state without ordinary perception, and without disordered perception, and without no perception, and without any annihilation of perception. It is perception, consciousness, that is the source of all the basic obstacles. And the man said, sir, you have explained to us everything we have asked you about. There is one more question we would like you to answer for us. Do the learned scholars of the world say that this is the highest purification of the individual being, or do they say that there is some other kind of goal? And the Buddha said, there are scholars and authorities who say that this is the highest and the purification of the individual. There are others who maintain that the highest purity is to be found in the complete eradication of the 5 components of the person. That means the 5 aggregates. And there is also the Muni, the wise man. He has realized which things are dependencies, and he knows that these are only crutches and props. And when he has realized this, he has become free. He does not enter into arguments, and so does not enter the round of endless becomings. This man has a lot of questions. I think nothing much to explain here.